Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tatiana Show. It is April 18th, 2017, and I'm broadcasting to you live from my glorious apartment in New Jersey. I have a great guest today, Will Madden from Bridge21, good buddy and a great innovator in this space, so that's always interesting. Josh is MIA. I don't know where he is. Maybe his Techstars thing is taking him away from us, but I thought that I'd do something a little bit different this time. As you all know, I put out my album, Keep the Faith, on March 31st, and I would love to play a song for you. And I thought maybe on the upcoming shows, I'll do some more music and play for you guys live. So you can get a little taste of what you'll get on the album, which is actually with a full band, arguably better than this performance, but we'll give it a try anyway. So this song is called Keep the Faith. All alone in my bed, fighting dragons again. No, I can't stop the tears when they fall. How did I get to this place? All that work seems a waste. I thought I had friends on my side. Keep the memories that make love from war. No, you never know what life has in store. It can take a little while to learn to keep the faith. You gotta learn to keep the faith. You know it's been a real bad year, lots of sorrow and fear, and I've wondered where I took the wrong turn. But I've had time to reflect, gave myself some respect, and I'll face the whole big world mighty strong. Keep the memories that make love from war. No, you never know what life has in store. It can take a little while to learn to keep the faith. You gotta learn to keep the faith. You go rolling ahead, and I cry a little bit. No, you won't find your way back to me. But at the end of the day, I thank God when I pray, 'cause it was better than drinking alone. Keep the memories that make love from war. No, you never know what life has in store. It can take a little while to learn to keep the faith. You gotta learn to keep the faith. You gotta learn to keep faith. Those are loud crowds of people cheering. I hope you guys enjoyed that song. You can hear more of that on my new album. And congratulations to Token.fm. They're launching next month, but they had a press release go out. So keep an eye out there and see what we're working on to build a platform for artists, by artists, and remove the middleman. Middleman can stay if we want him, but he becomes an option and not an obligation. So moving on from rock and roll, we're going to talk about bridging the gap between the rich, the poor, the financed and the unfinanced, the banked and the unbanked. And Will is going to tell us all about it. Will Madden, welcome to the Tatiana Show.
Hey, Tatiana, thanks for having me here. And I just want to say you have a really, and I've said this before, you have a really beautiful voice.
Oh, thank you. So, you are welcome on my show anytime with that attitude.
Yeah, it's
cool. Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, so we're really excited. Bridge21 is a cross-border payments company, and there's a lot of us, but is how we move money. So we're not using banks at all. What we're using is electronic cash. Story. Yeah, we're using Bitcoin.
Okay.
So we're really more or less an experiment, right? So my background, I came from Western Union, and so a little bit of this is kind of making up for that probably, but what I learned there was that it's really hard to send money around the world because there are like 200 countries that have their own rules and like 199 countries on the other end of that have their own rules. So it's like 20,000 possible combinations of ways to basically go to jail trying to send money around the world. So it's super, super hard. It's this regulatory compliance stuff, right? So that's just to get started. But then kind of like add into that, you know, our money, and this isn't a surprise to you, but our money is really debt-based, right? We have a credit-based monetary system everywhere you go. And the problem is that that requires these intermediaries, these banks. So not only do you have all of these rules and laws and regulations to sort of figure out, which is not terribly exciting and super hard to do safely, you have like these giant banks that you've really got to get their blessing to do anything involving another country. So it's just freaking impossible.
Why is that? Terrible. Why do you need their approval? The country, their respective central banking system, or banks in general?
It's really both. So, I mean, there's usually a regulator, which is a central bank typically, or an authority that's kind of appointed and related. And then, but then you have, you know, the banks that you actually use with your company that you've got to go through. So you have layers in just one country to go through to even connect to it. So all that is, it's really simple. It forces that to happen only with big companies that are established. Nobody can really challenge it. So what's really exciting is Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is really the first opportunity ever to kind of get into this and really shake it up and bring down the cost to help people move money around for a lower cost. So that's really what we're all about. We're moving money from the US to Mexico, and really excited to kind of branch out into other countries and just do it all with Bitcoin. So, yeah.
So I have a question for you. What happens if there's more regulation around sending money to Mexico? You know, Trump doesn't want money to go to other countries, and how would that impact your business? Is that something that you guys have to be concerned about?
It is. Yeah, I mean, the remittance tax thing is definitely a concern.
What is that? For people that don't know, myself somewhat included, but I have a general overview. But
the idea is that I think Trump wants to build a border wall, and if Mexico won't finance it, he plans to tax remittances to Mexico from the U.S. I've heard numbers anywhere from like 20 to 35% to pay.
Who would be paying that tax?
Well, that's the thing, right? So poor people. Yeah.
So it's the people that are sending the money or the recipients?
It's the people sending the money. So if you wanted to send $200 to Mexico and there's a 35% tax, 70 of it would come out before it even got converted to pesos.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really pretty rough. And then it's actually a little worse because about 26 billion moves from the US to Mexico, which are really families sending money back. I mean, people sending money back to their families in Mexico, but there's about 500 billion that actually moves between US and Mexico between companies. It's like 20 times as much money. So we're not taxing that. We're just taxing the much smaller amount that like poorer people send to pay for.
Wow.
So yeah, it's just like, probably not a great idea.
Yeah, no, it doesn't sound like it. I wonder why. I mean, other than the obvious, oh, they're all on the take. I mean, I wonder what the justification is for not taxing businesses. Is it because of the already expensive compliance costs that companies have doing business that way in the first place? And also, do I care? I don't know.
I don't
I mean,
know.
I'm not a fan of taxation overall. Um, but what is the justification for that? Like, why do they say, oh, don't worry about these really rich businesses. We're just going to charge these broke little Mexican people that are sending money back to their families?
Nobody's really addressed that. I
Really?
think it's probably hard to explain.
Hmm.
Yeah, I really think that might just be it.
Yeah.
That doesn't sell.
Yeah, I guess not. Huh. Wow, that's wild. So then how do you guys step in? And then will this tax preclude you? Like, okay, I want to use Bridge 21. What do I do? How do I use it?
You go to our site, you sign up.
Mm-hmm.
We still have to collect some information on who you are. So we're regulated in the US and also in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
But after you sign up, we take money out of your US account and then we can deposit it into any bank in Mexico in around 5 minutes. So we can very quickly move money across borders. It's
Cool.
pretty
Do we know
cool.
what the fee is?
Yeah. So it's 1%. It's really transparent.
Wow, that's so
Based on what we
cheap.
send. Yeah,
So as
it's really
long as they
cheap.
don't have a problem registering their information, which for some people they do,
Mhm.
then they should be able to use the service unless some sort of regulatory changes happen. They start taxing everybody, and then you guys will have to collect that money. But either way, it would still be cheaper than Western Union
It would
or a
still be,
similar company.
yeah, we'd still be cheaper, but the tax would definitely be tough, I think.
I think so for everybody. I mean, I don't even know how anybody would get money across the border at that rate. I guess the goal is to keep them all here, all the money's here. I don't know. That's just such a complicated and unfortunate situation. So what made you want to do this? I guess wanting to find a solution to the inability to send to other countries, right?
I mean, I think it's frustrating to me that you can talk to somebody in another country right
Mm-hmm.
away for free and you need to think about it, right? You can text, tweet, you can have a video call like this, wherever you
Mm-hmm.
are, it doesn't matter. We didn't even think about it, but if you want to pay somebody in another country, regardless of if it's a business or a person, it's literally faster to mail money there than it is to wire it through banks. And it's just because of this huge stack of regulation, law, and gunk that's like built up for hundreds of years. And people don't think about it, but it's really crushing to economies. It's crushing to poor people. It hurts everybody. And I mean, you don't think about it, but like you can't buy something online from a corner store in the United Kingdom very easily because there's no real way to pay them easily unless they're willing to like work with MasterCard and Visa, and then you're paying a 4% exchange rate, right? It's like everything has this huge tax on it that you don't see. And there's absolutely no reason for it to be like that. Like I think Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general is going to be the future, but I think there's probably a little bit of time between now and then where we're using fiat. So we're just trying to make that kind of happen faster.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah.
what's on the horizon? Because you guys have been around for a little while and now you're expanding and you're kind of doing some new things. So tell me what's going on.
Yeah, we're going to keep working on US to Mexico, and we have
Mm-hmm.
some partnerships where we're working with other companies that already have a lot of customers. So we're going to try to
Mm-hmm.
grow that. And then we want to expand. So we're looking at India, the Philippines, China, the UK, the European Union. I mean, down the list, all of the Americas, like Argentina, Brazil are super exciting. I
But don't
think,
you have to just like comply with every? I would think that that would be very cost preclusive to try and be in compliance, even if you want to be in compliance, which most companies do. I mean, it's just the cost of it is just astronomical.
yeah, it's not cheap, right? It's pretty expensive, but we do have a pretty big advantage. It's not just to us, but it's anybody that wants to do this that can get through it, I guess, is we work with exchanges in each country. So, um, an exchange in the Philippines has already figured out who the regulators are. They already talk to them, get the licensing, make that happen. And then all we have to do is just plug Bitcoin into it and do an integration. And we can sort of just bypass the entire Swift correspondent banking network that the banks use
Mm-hmm.
and just eliminate it. So
Right.
pretty cool.
Have you run into any kind of problems so far? Like, how was it in terms of getting registered in the US? How long did that process take? Because the bit license, for example, makes it impossible to do business in New York unless you are already kind of an incumbent. A lot of people are saying that, and I would venture it's correct, that it was sort of something in order to keep out Bitcoin businesses because they were so threatening to establish financial systems. How long did it take for Bridge21 to be in compliance?
A long time. And I'm not terribly happy about the bit license either.
Right.
It took us, we started in March of 2014, and we didn't really get solid banking until it was a year later. So it took a year of just talking to banks and figuring this stuff out to even get through to having that set up. So it was not easy. And it's not going to be easy for somebody that wants to do it too. I mean, you really have to work at it and convince banks to work with you. So it's not completely fixed things yet. And I don't,
but you had some,
yeah.
You had some insights into that space from working in Western Union, though, right?
A little bit, yeah. It wasn't connections from Western Union that did it. It was actually just researching and finding who will even work with Bitcoin companies. And even some banks that did it at that time wouldn't, because either they'd done one and they were over with it, they weren't going to do more, or we just weren't big enough for them. So it took some work to figure that part out.
Did you get, now this is sort of, you're probably not going to give this answer as candidly, but did you think, because I think that a lot of times the regulators, I mean, everybody says, F the regulators, but what was your experience with them in terms of, do you think that there are people that would like to see things improve? Or, I mean, obviously there's always some pencil pushers and stuff, but did you see an understanding of the technology? How was it? Were you surprised at all with people's reactions in any way, or was it sort of par for the course?
That's a really great question. So, I mean, I knew about Bitcoin pretty early, late 2010, and
oh wow, that is early.
Yeah, it was. I was at Western Union, so my job at that time was to kind of keep track of things and learn about it really, really early. Was sending money to Mt. Gox through Dwala, which was one way to do it at that time. It was kind of hard, but yeah, I've been paying attention to it, and the regulators actually did figure it out really quickly. FinCEN back in I think early 2000 and might have been 13 or it was 14 passed guidance on it, and they got it pretty quickly. I mean, they really understood what it was and what it wasn't, and they'd already figured out kind of how to regulate it. I think regulators ultimately are people. I mean, they're just people in a different position. I think maybe some people gravitate towards those positions more than others, right? But ultimately, they are just people. There are some good people, and then there are some bad people.
Well, just like with anything, right?
Yeah. It just, they happen to have a lot more power. So
yeah, I think that's the problem. Do you think, what kind of, okay, so if somebody thinks, but you need regulation, what would you respond to that? I mean, do you think that there's ways that regulating the industry can be handled without involving cumbersome, slow, bureaucratic response, the way that the government does it? I mean, the government it's impossible to be efficient there because they're just not built that way. How do you think, though, that an industry can self-regulate, though?
I think that I have sort of an answer that's my ideal, and then I have an answer that's maybe more pragmatic, right? I think the reality is that there's kind of a structure out there, and to work with that, I think it's too soon to regulate Bitcoin and cryptocurrency more broadly than it has been already. I think state licensing and state regulation is just a bad idea right now. I think what we've got is probably good enough to cover it, so that the fears from regulators involve like money laundering and terrorist financing, and there's a whole industry built up around that and that idea and that sort of way of looking at money, where it's not really a medium of exchange, right? Where I can, you sell me a song and I give you some money, right? It's become almost a form of surveillance, and whether you're for that or against that, that's what it is, right? It's kind of an arm. It's a way to kind of manage and exert power without going to war in a lot of ways. That's what money has become. And I think intelligence around money and being able to see that and surveil on it is just become part of the institution. So that's hard to make compatible with crypto, right? Because it's completely antithetical. Bitcoin, maybe not so much, but things like Zcash or Monero or even Dash, right? Those are just kind of can kind of go across the grain a little bit. So I guess my point is, what they've already done with FinCEN is probably where it should be left. I don't think going through and regulating the heck out of this thing at this point makes any sense at all. And I think we're going to look back on this in 20 years. And if it is overregulated, it's just going to be hilarious and it's going to be embarrassing. It's going to be, people trying to put speed limits on whatever we used to call it, the information superhighway. It's just a dumb, bad idea because nobody knows what's going to happen, right? It's too new.
Well, I think they're also driving a lot of innovation out of the United States because it's so expensive to comply with the U.S. There's a lot of opportunities for other countries, which is sort of anti-business. If Trump likes business, go for Bitcoin, buddy. I'm surprised that, I don't know. I'm surprised at a lot of things. I thought that things would be a little bit different, but I guess not. Whatever people have to say about Trump, I thought he would at least be kind of pro-business, but I haven't really seen that other than him creating jobs, which I'm not really sure is his job. So I don't know. I'm a little disappointed. Sorry to veer off into the political weeds. But I think a lot of people are questioning what's happening right now. So what's on the horizon? You guys are going to keep focusing on Mexico. What are some of the ways that, are there any other companies that are trying to do things the way that you're doing? Why would somebody want to use Bridge21 versus a different method? Because it makes it so easy.
I think it's more just price. And it's hard to explain. It's a little technical, but whenever you send money to another country into another currency rate, you get an exchange rate. So maybe you get 80 cents or 80 pence GBP for $1 or whatever the exchange rate is, or so many euro or so many yen. The thing is, if you look at this stuff, all of the exchange rates that you get from anybody, it doesn't matter if it's a bank, money transfer company, currency exchange house, they're all based on the same thing. It's this mid-market rate. And there are these big currency markets where people trade money. And there's a rate in the middle of it. And everybody just takes that and marks it up a few percent, and that's your rate. We're the only company in the world right now that is really taking Bitcoin to make an exchange rate. So when you send money through us, what you're actually doing is buying Bitcoin with US dollars. And if you're sending it to Mexico, you're selling Bitcoin for pesos at the same time. And we're using that to make your exchange rate. So super kind of technical, heavy, not terribly exciting if you're not into finance. But what that means is that our exchange rate for US dollars to Mexican pesos is completely non-correlated with bank rates. That means it's sometimes worse, but it's sometimes better, right? So if people are buying Bitcoin in Mexico and selling it in the US, we can have 5% better than everybody else in terms of our rates. So what makes us better than everybody else is the fact that sometimes we're really, really cheap, like a lot cheaper, and sometimes for a lot of money. Yeah.
Why don't those companies use you instead of having their own poor services? You know what I mean? Couldn't they just hire you guys and have you do the back end of transferring the money and then pocket the difference?
There are some more progressive companies out there that are moving money with banks right now that are talking to us about doing just that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that seems like it would be good.
Yeah. It took us a little longer to figure that out. We figured it out pretty quickly. We didn't figure it out until a few weeks ago, but yeah.
See, there you go. That's why I should have called you. Well, I like that. I like that insight. What else? Anything? What's going on the horizon? Are you going to be doing any speaking engagements? I know you have Elizabeth McCauley. I still call her Pluche, but Elizabeth is doing some talks. I think she and I are going to do one in New Jersey in May. I just sent an email out to confirm that. What about you? Where are you going to speak? And are you the black sheep of financial conferences because you used to be involved with what is it, Western Union before, and now they're like, why did you go to the Bitcoin people? Or are people excited about it?
I think it's a little of both, maybe. I don't feel like a black sheep yet. We're looking at maybe Money 2020. I don't know. I think they're still deciding on speakers for that. Thinking about maybe Consensus. It's interesting. I don't know if I'm going to be out in New York or not, but I'd like to. So there's a whole list of things that I think we're planning on. So we're sort of waiting until the last minute to decide. So
okay, cool. Yeah. Yeah, I think I think consensus will be fun. It's always nice to have everybody coming out to New York. I don't think I'm doing a party this year, which is disappointing, but cool. All right. Well, is there anything else you want to share with our audience? Like if somebody wants to reach out to you and maybe talk about integration or I mean, regular old folks who are sending remittances, they can already use it. And I know that you guys are going to be growing. So is there a way that people can kind of connect if they think that this might be a good solution for their business?
Yeah, absolutely. I think anybody that wants to partner with us that might use this to move money, or if you're just interested in kind of what we're doing, even if you're a developer, we'd love to talk to you. We love to talk to everybody. Yeah, even, strategic partners too. Just send an email to founders@bridge21inc.com. Or you can just hit us up on Twitter or Facebook or anything like that, and we'll get back to you. So
cool. So is the development difficult to do? I mean, how long did it take to develop the product itself? Because I know the company is not just comprised of the development, but I'm always curious about how long it actually takes to do one of these little puppies.
It was really, really easy to get it working, kind of like as a proof of concept. This is going to be cake. And then it was super, super hard to actually make it work at scale. So it was really, really challenging. Because I mean, without getting into it, because your eyes will glaze over, but Bitcoin, you kind of have to keep that pretty safe, right? Like you can't have shoddy security around Bitcoin, even if you're only holding it for a few seconds. So it was really challenging, but we're technical and nerdy, so we love that stuff. Cool. It took us like a year really to get it nailed down. Yeah.
Do you think that when these large banks come in, I mean, they have pretty deep pockets, but from what I can see, all of their private blockchain stuff hasn't really worked. I chalk that up to lack of experience and these things being harder. Like it takes people a lot longer than they think it does to build something. Why do you think that banks have been so unsuccessful at building something that's useful? I mean, have they built anything that's useful so far? Or as far as I can tell, no. I'm not even being a jerk. I actually am curious. Have they built anything that's working well or no? And do you think that they would be able to kind of replicate things in the industry so easily? Why do you think there's that gap? Because they've got, pockets. They can just hit print anytime.
That's hard to argue with that. I think they're sort of missing the point, and I understand why, right? I think what was really exciting and interesting about Bitcoin back in, the early days, like through 2012, was just the fact that you had money and value that you could exchange with somebody else without anybody in the middle, right? That is it. That's the invention. It's this unique sort of information that just exists on the internet and can't be copied. Like that is the big breakthrough. And so I think you have to remember that. And then when you look at everything else that's going on, like the acronym is distributed ledger technology and, whatever it's called this week, right? The new branding for it. Is that really what it's about? And I think when you're talking about ledgers that connect big banks to each other, those banks are competing with each other. Like they could do that naturally without Bitcoin or any other blockchain. So I think you have to look and say, is this really solving a problem, or is this more of a solution looking for kind of a problem? And
I've heard that.
Unfortunately, a lot of them are kind of doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. I'm not really sure why they're not. I mean, why is anybody taking this seriously? Because if they're not like getting the point of it, I mean, I guess they could keep innovating. I just don't really see them making much progress from what I can tell. And there's all these Bitcoin companies that, thank God, have made it through the drought. I mean, Jesus, when it was like 250 a coin and everybody thought it was going to go to 10,000, it just kept falling and falling for years. I have such admiration for companies that were able to stay afloat during that time. I don't know. I'm just surprised that even with those deep pockets, they can't make it happen. But they don't want the things that make Bitcoin great, right? Like they don't want the transparency, they don't want the immutability. It's like, well, why are you even here? But I don't know. I don't really understand how some of that works. I don't understand the impetus for it, and I'm sure that it's not just they're idiots. It's definitely not the answer.
Definitely not
sometimes.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of different factors. I think that their hands are tied as well, because it seems like the banking industry isn't really thrilled with all the regulation in a lot of ways either. It kind of makes them, yes, it keeps them in the incumbent seat, but there's also a lot of additional costs and sort of inefficiencies that happen, even, Bitcoin aside, that kind of make the financial industry more difficult to master, other than saying, well, screw you guys, which is just like a regular person's view on them, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, what they do is really complicated, but I think there's also just the fact is that cryptocurrency kind of threatens a lot of things that they do too. It takes away, and it's like if it moves forward, when it moves forward, it's just going to redefine that industry, and that's going to be scary,
Yeah.
any incumbent, and naturally they're going to push back on it, right? It's kind of like a horse and buggy manufacturing company, and the Model T's out now, right? It's just natural. So we'll see how long it takes, right?
I like seeing the finance people happy about it. I think that a lot of people in the financial industry are very frustrated with their situation. I don't know if they all thought, everybody likes the big fat paycheck, right? But I don't know how their souls fare when they see the bureaucracy and the corruption and all of those other things. I think it must be very frustrating. That's what I've seen. I was a little bit judgmental toward finance people. And I don't think that they're all bad. Some of them are, but I think some of them are just as excited, because underneath it all, they're not just their job. They're not just finance people. They're people, and humanity can benefit so much. And I think that some of them recognize that. I think that brings us all closer. I have this song called "Same Side" on the new record, and everybody really likes that song. And the whole message of it is, we're all on the same side and we all want the same thing. So with the exception of the 3% of the world's sociopaths, everybody else is pretty much okay. So I don't know. I'm excited to have other people in the community, and any less bankers, more regular people, more of the unbanked, which is what you're helping with, which is great.
Yeah.
Do people have to have a bank account in Mexico in order to do it, by the way?
Right now they do, but
Okay.
we're working on that. Like pretty soon we're going to have the ability to cash out with pesos, and then also cash in with US dollars too in the US. It's just, that's harder than it sounds. It's going to take a little bit of time, but
Okay.
that's
So
what people really want. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Great. Well, everybody, if you all want to find out more about Will and what he's doing, go to bridge21, the number.io. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay, because there was another one, Bridge21 Inc., but that's founders.
Yes.
Founders at bridge21.inc. If you want to reach Will, and then bridge21.io if you want to use it, if you want to test it out, if you have some family or friends in Mexico, you want to send them some money and try it out. That'd be awesome. Thanks very much for coming on, Will. I'll see you in a couple weeks, I think.
I think so. See you later.
Cool. Peace out. Take care. Thanks everyone for tuning into the show. Sorry it's a shorty, but our other guest Sarah wasn't able to join us. Sally wasn't able to join us. She was going to tell us about this Amish situation, but we'll have her come back another day. Thank you to the Bitcoin CPA and Crypto Compare, as well as Third Key Solutions, Sovereign Tech, Sex and Science Hour, NetKey, Voltoro, and my own company, Crypto Media Hub. If you guys need PR, marketing, or advertising help, I'm your girl. And check out the new record at TatianaMrose.com. See you later, everybody. Peace out.